Hello and welcome to this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Different topic today, some fun. We're going to talk sports. We're going to talk with Lori Hendricks. She is the Director of Athletics and Recreation at UMass Dartmouth, the new Athletic Director of Athletics and Recreation. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here today and thrilled to be at the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth.
This is interesting because people always think Director of Athletics, but you've got recreation to your title. Mm-hmm. Tell people a little bit about what your job is.
Sure. Well, we have 19 varsity sports, highly competitive, which I love our student athletes and I love our coaches, and that's usually what people think about in terms of my role. But I also, like you said, cover recreation, and so that really is more expansive to all of our students, and whether that's working out in our fitness center or taking part in group aerobic or Zumba or kickboxing classes, we really look at ways that we can engage everybody in physical activity. We also have intramural sports. For some students, they have been competitive as athletes in high school, and now they are choosing to focus on their studies, or they may have to work or have other opportunities that have become a priority. And so to be able to participate in intramurals, which would be competing against teams from the college. So you get your friends together, or if you want, we can help you assign you to a team. So it's a great way for people to maintain their physical activity. So very expansive.
When you look at percentages, do a lot of kids participate in either the varsity, which is limited, but the recreational aspect of it too?
Absolutely, and I would say that that's a critical part of their collegiate experience. You know, one of the things that I promote with our incoming students is this interest in developing healthy habits. So probably when I was in college and you were in college, we heard a lot about cramming for an exam, pulling the all-nighter, and it was this badge of honor. And now, whether we're working with our varsity athletes or working with the students in general, we're talking about how do you fuel your body. So it's not just, I've got a big game coming up, but perhaps you've got a test, perhaps you're studying. So building those healthy habits of getting the appropriate nutrition, appropriate sleep, and just moving, not sitting at a desk or in the library all day. It's really important for our students to sustain their leadership. We know how powerful they are, or they think they are in their 20s, but we need them to be leading. We expect at the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth to be global citizens well into their 50s and 60s or later, so develop healthy habits.
Do you find, because I know that in general you see that kids, especially young kids, are obese, and kids aren't as active as they used to be. Do you find that by the time they get to your school, your level, that they've realized that they've got to be more active?
You know, this actually is an issue that we're facing and trying to understand. Many schools, for financial reasons, have cut programs, not just in the arts, but also in physical education, or they've moved to a fee-based system, which actually makes it not as accessible for all students to be physically active. So it's really important for me and for my institution to think about how can we make physical activity accessible to everyone. We also know it's great for building community. When you go with your friends and you're competing in intramurals, or maybe you're working out together with your workout buddies, it's great for building a sense of belonging with the institution. But we've got to figure it out.
UMass Dartmouth has a great campus to allow you to do, for crying out loud, just walking, trails.
We are investing in, we have a cross-country route, and we host one of the largest cross-country invitationals for Division III in New England. And we're looking at how can we expand those trails so that they're accessible to our students and also to the community members. We want them to be active, and we know that we have a great resource in our campus.
You've got a lot on your plate, I know, in 6 months, as you said, on the job. I wanted to talk to you, obviously, when you came in today, and one of the big things that we were chatting about off camera and what have you is Title IX. This is the 50th anniversary of Title IX. You have been working on Title IX your whole professional career, really. And for a lot of people, I don't know if they know what Title IX is. So as we start the conversation about that, I guess, what is Title IX?
Sure. So Title IX was a part of the educational amendments passed back in June of 1972. And it's a very simple law that talks about equity and not discriminating based on sex in higher education. And so it's a very broad-based law that was developed. It's had a significant impact on athletics, and that's really what I have been focused on in my career.
Right.
I'm a Title IX baby. I was born in 1970, and I can say that I have benefited from the law of Title IX. And really it was looking at how do we make higher education more accessible, particularly for women. And we're talking about at the undergraduate level, at the graduate school level, but also in medical schools and in law schools, looking at really providing more opportunities for women to be able to access that education. It wasn't until 1979 that the regulations for athletics came out.
And I was going to say, because that's something I read, which I didn't realize, it was never, at the start, an athletic law.
Correct. It was focused on the broader accessibility of higher education for women. So in 1979, when we did see the regulations come out about athletics, it had an immediate impact. We saw the number of opportunities for women at the high school level expand and at the college level expand.
And obviously, we were children back then, but pre-1972, in general, what was it like for women?
Well, again, I have benefited from that,
Right.
and while I didn't live that history, I do understand and appreciate that even when you look at the governing bodies, the NCAA, for example, didn't allow women or didn't organize competitions for women until 1981.
Really?
So prior to that, the AIAW, which is the Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women, they were the group that was organizing for women. Now, surprisingly, they were actually larger than the NCAA in terms of participants at that time, but they were not organizing or had the visibility that the NCAA did, especially when the NCAA started securing television contracts.
And the interesting thing, when I look at TV contracts, and this is off the beaten path, but you need viewers too. In order to make it work, you need viewers. So even if the sport's on and you don't get the viewers, it hurts the argument. It doesn't even matter if it's men or women, the sport. Mm-hmm. You got to have somebody watching it in order to make it work.
Well, that's where we've seen the progress. And that's where I would say I am one of those viewers who now sees highly competitive women playing soccer, playing basketball at the professional level. I actually got into this because as a junior at Mount Holyoke College, we had Willie White, who was a 5-time Olympian, come and speak to us about the responsibility of women getting involved with sport. And she wasn't just talking about professionally. She said, you're an expert in your field. When you have children or when you're thinking about what you can do with some of your free time, coach your niece, coach your nephew's soccer game. You know, we have a need for volunteers in all of these areas, and we need women, especially those of you who have had collegiate experience. We need you to get involved. And I thought, wow, this is a real thing. I can get involved with that. So I would say for me, I have watched women see there are opportunities to get involved, and we've seen it grow. And we know that the competitive levels have expanded. We've seen women's soccer bring in numbers that are higher than some of the men's professional soccer.
And it's ironic that they just got, earlier this year, equal pay.
Yeah.
How long that, and that sort of stems from Title IX.
Yeah, it has taken a while, and I am not an expert in this field, but when you talk about transformation, you talk about the individual transformation taking much shorter than when you get to an institutional, and then when you get to a societal, they often talk about 50 years. So it makes sense that right now we are staying vigilant, but we're not there yet. We still need to keep working on equity issues and making sport accessible for women at all levels.
And first of all, you're an athlete too.
Yeah.
So you're coming at this from an athletic perspective. And that's got to make a difference for you too. As you said, you benefited from it. So you see the benefits of it. As you were saying to me off camera, a long time ago, there was not a lot of women in college in general. There was always leaning to the men, but now you see the trend going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And as you said to me off camera, that's a little bit due to Title IX, the opportunities that are there.
Right. The opportunities are there for women, and we're seeing just the demographics changing for higher ed. We're seeing more first-generation college students that are entering. We're seeing a more racially diverse group of students who are entering higher ed. And so it has transformed the landscape of who's taking advantage of higher education.
You touched on it briefly, but I want to talk about, so at the high school level, I would assume that's where it starts too. I mean, college is there, but it starts in the high school level too, because the sports, the girls are athletic, are competing in different sports at that level, and then it goes to the college level. Am I right on that?
Honestly, I would have said that 10 years ago, but now look at youth sports and how that's expanded.
Okay.
Whether that's your youth basketball league or your youth soccer league, we have young people who are starting when they're 6 or 7, involved in these kind of recreational activities at the club level. So that's feeding into the high school system. So there's actually even a feeder system before the high school level.
Right. And in high school sports too, I mean, well, on one hand, we were talking about it just at the start of the program. It seems less kids are playing high school sports in general, but the opportunities are there now for a lot of sports, depending on the high school, and obviously, as you mentioned, a lot of schools cut in athletics and aren't get affected, but there are sports still at the high school level.
Right. And it has changed. I think about when I was growing up, and the girls' sports that were offered at the high school level were pretty limited. There was track and field, tennis, swimming, so it was limited. And now we are seeing women participating in lacrosse, and not just those basic sports, but we're seeing lacrosse, we're seeing field hockey, we're seeing an expansion of opportunities. Softball has grown tremendously.
Softball is huge, yeah.
It's huge.
And soccer's huge.
The numbers have just been continuing to grow. So you're right, we're seeing bigger rosters, we're seeing different sports, more sports added. The NCAA has an emerging sports group that we continue to add, sports that seem to be taking off. There seems to be a lot of interest, and so providing those kind of opportunities for women is really important.
Touch on, because I was asking you, because I don't understand how it works, is it based on participants by the number, or is it based on teams?
Right, so the Title IX regulations actually have 13 different areas. Participation is one, financial aid is another, and then there's this group of 11 that we often refer to as the laundry list. But most people are more familiar with the participation piece. And then where it gets complicated is there's actually 3 ways to meet participation. One, the opportunities you provide for your varsity athletes mirror the percentage of students that you have at your institution. So if my institution has 40% women, we are offering at least 40% of opportunities for women at the varsity level. But you could also meet that participation prong by showing and demonstrating a continued expansion of your programming. So understanding that sports come with a cost, but we're also looking at a short time frame. You can't say we added a sport 20 years ago. We're really looking at probably 5-year increments. And then the last piece is, are you meeting everybody's interest, which is really difficult to prove.
Do you look at sports, what you want to form a team with? How do you look at that? I mean, for example, you always have do you take tennis out or put lacrosse in, or how do you look at, for men and women, how do you look at the sports that you're choosing for the university? Right,
the sport mix and the profile. There's a number of factors that one would look at. I can say that you can look at the history of the sport at your institution. So what is the longevity? Is there a history of success? Is there a history of participation? Is it a sport that you're known, your reputation is connected to it? So that's one area. We also, though, have club sports, and those are organized by students. They do compete against other institutions, but it's different from the varsity level sports because they may not have as many competitions that they participate in. The students may choose not to practice the same amount. So we often look at our club sports to see where do we see some demonstrated interest and growth. So if we have a club team in triathlon and we see that continuing to expand in roster size, and we have the students asking for a different type of experience that might be more aligned with our varsity experience, that would be a group that we'd want to talk to about perhaps that becomes a university-sponsored sport.
The evil word money. How critical or how much of a factor is the money issue that a sport generates to keeping a sport?
Well, at the Division III level, and that's where the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth sits and leads, we aren't talking about bringing in revenue.
Right.
We aren't relying on ticket sales. We are not relying on major TV contracts to fund our department. So we're really looking at how can we enhance our overall student experience. And that's the students who are participating, but also those students who might want to come and see a really competitive contest and who love that community spirit and engagement. We very lucky we had two teams, our men's and women's basketball teams were in the Little East Conference Championship, and we hosted the men's championship game on our campus. We packed the stands, and who wouldn't want to be a part of that experience? So got to take that into the mix. How do we contribute to the community vibe and spirit and vitality of our institutions?
From your experience dealing with the big schools versus the little schools, how much of a difference is it when you're dealing with the issues that you're talking about as Title IX? Because there is big money at D1, but the D3 schools, these are talented kids, men and women, and really they're kids. As I look at it now, they're all kids. How much of a difference is it from what you see from big schools versus these Division III schools? And again, they're competitive. The Little East Conference is very competitive. And as I told my kids, the kids that are playing at UMass Dartmouth or Keene State or Rhode Island College, these were the studs, if you will, in their boys and girls. They were the best players on their team. So how is it different when you look at the bigger schools versus the smaller schools?
Well, I've had the good fortune of, I was a Division III student athlete, but I also had the good fortune of getting degrees from both the Ohio State University and the University of Michigan. So
That's what,
I've seen those. I also worked at the NCAA, both in Kansas and Indiana, and so I've had a great deal of experience witnessing what these programs are prioritizing. I would say that the commitment to the student athlete experience is very solid, and I can look at all of my alma maters and say that's probably why I chose those institutions, because they are student centered. So that, I don't think that commitment it changes from institution to institution. But as you are looking at how are we going to divide up our pot, I do think that's where the Division I institutions are looking at multi-million-dollar programs.
Right.
So I can say that at my previous Division III institution, an Ohio State or Michigan athletics budget was larger than the overall university budget. So there's just decisions that need to be made about the priorities. And when it comes to Title IX, you're not just paying attention to participation. That is an important part. But like I said, the laundry list includes things like, do we have high standards for coaches of the women's program as well as the men? Are we going out and hiring the top women's volleyball coach just like we would for a football program or baseball program? Are we looking at the services we provide for our women's programs, like our athletic training or strength and conditioning? Are they getting the access that our men's programs are? So I would say at the Division I level, because they have more resources, they've got to be more mindful and intentional about making sure that there is equity.
From the NCAA standpoint, there's a lot going on, and you have a unique role because you've been there. It must be different from when you're looking at D1 versus D3 too, but the foundation's got to be the same, I would imagine.
I have great colleagues at all divisions, divisions 1, 2, and 3. And frankly, their commitment to the student athlete experience, I align with them on so many issues. So from that perspective, I do think that that's a piece that I find solidarity with my colleagues at the Michigans, at the Yale, at Division II programs across the country. That doesn't change, but we are facing some different issues. The name, image, and likeness. Some of this new legislation that's coming out is hitting institutions differently. So you'll hear talk at the Division I institution about how are we helping to facilitate that process of our student athletes being able to work with agents to be able to get compensated for that. That's going to be a lot different and a different conversation at the Division II or Division III level.
Right. We got a few minutes left, but I wanted to, some examples this past week which I thought were curious, and I don't know if it's related to Title IX, but I think it is. So we just had a Massachusetts woman who was just named an assistant general manager for the New Jersey Devils hockey team. Mm-hmm. I just saw that the Seattle Kraken, I'm a hockey guy, I admit it, but I saw that they became the first NHL team to hire full-time woman coach. She's going to coach their AHL affiliate. Mm-hmm. Is that the sort of thing that Title IX ultimately can lead to when you're looking at down the road? I mean, I know that there's been talk about a woman head coach in the NBA. I know that, her name escapes me, but she coaches at San Antonio, and she's been interviewed for the job. She hasn't got one yet, but she's been interviewed. Is that what Title IX has sort of led to?
Title IX has given women access to be able to participate, and then that leads to excellence. So it's not a surprise that we are looking at professional teams who are saying who's the best out there, and we are seeing women who have proven themselves at different levels, both as an athlete, as a coach, and so that's not a surprise. So that is kind of the natural progression of Title IX. I would absolutely credit Title IX with allowing this to move forward.
Is there some sports that are better than others for women? When you're talking about coaching, and you've coached, is it easier to gain that foothold for making it your profession?
Well, I would say that there are definitely some sports that have higher visibility right now. And also that higher visibility draws greater scrutiny. So people are looking at it and they're saying, is your staff diverse racially? Is it diverse with regard to gender? So right now when we talk about professional leagues, immediately people are thinking about what's happening with soccer, what's happening with basketball. And so those are just natural places that people's eyes go to in terms of scrutiny. Football has been a male-dominated sport at the high school and college level in terms of participants. But we're seeing women starting to say, hey, I kind of dig this. I'd like to be involved with this. And so I do think that those kind of participation opportunities may be changing. But we know that women who have been successful as coaches, working in personnel, working in all sorts of facets of the sport, they have proven themselves successful, and these are multi-billion-dollar operations.
I think is it the Raiders? Their new president, new president of operations was a woman.
Absolutely. We know that women have these skill sets, and we've seen it professionally outside of sports. That you might be working for a cola manufacturer, but then you're asked to lead in another industry sector. So that's not unusual that we've seen that. So giving women an opportunity to prove themselves and demonstrate their skill set and their excellence, it's not surprising.
You got 4 minutes left, but I wanted you to sort of address sort of the challenges. You said we're not there yet, we still have work to do. What are some of the things that that you and others are looking at down the road? I'm sure there's immediate goals and then there's long-range goals.
Well, I would say that some of the basic principles of Title IX in terms of providing access and participation opportunities, we still have to be very mindful of that. And we need to be looking at the pipelines like youth sports. Is it accessible? Have we made things so costly that is financially inaccessible? Yeah. So I do think I will feel that at the collegiate level, if we are not developing young folks with those skill sets to be able to advance. So that's one piece that we can't lose sight of. That's out there. The other piece is really looking at some of the emerging trends. And I talked about the name, image, and likeness piece. That is something from a Title IX perspective we've got to pay attention to, because we've got to think about, are we actually providing more opportunities for compensation to our male athletes than to our female athletes? What are we doing to help shore that up? That is a huge area that folks are thinking about at the national level.
And it's different though, because as you were touching upon, the image and likeness, you're talking D1 kids versus, if you're a D3, that's not the same thing. Okay, but these are kids that could turn pro, but it's not to say that a D3 kid couldn't turn pro. Male, guy or gal, it could happen.
Well, it's all a matter of time. We have seen trends at the Division I level, and then they trickle down to Division II or Division III. And so as a Division III director of athletics, I am mindful of how are we promoting our women's sports and how are we promoting our men's sports, because this has been an issue for all of us. If we are putting more resources into promoting a particular sport, it's likely that sport is going to get more attention, which might actually then require more resources being directed to it. So I have to be mindful. And I care about not just gender equity, but sport equity. Are all of our sports really getting the attention, the coaching, the support services that they require and they demand, and being equitable about it across the board?
It's funny, this past year, we were all sitting around watching the NCAA women's tournament. I thought it was better than the men's tournament. Just the basketball was better and the emotion was better. And the place was packed.
Yeah.
Absolutely packed. Which, shows that, if you put a good product on television or on the floor, whatever you want to call it, people are going to watch. People are going to come and watch.
That's right. Sue Bird, she is retiring, and we're just seeing these sold-out crowds who want to see her last games. But the visibility and attention has raised her up and has made her a different commodity, a different product, whether you're seeing her in commercials or you're seeing her on the court, or whether you knew her as a player in college. So we know that visibility matters.
Well, that's why the women's soccer team, too, is so popular. They win, World Cup.
Absolutely.
Their ratings are fantastic.
Yeah. It's a great product. It's a great group that you want to watch, you want to see succeed. And, those principles haven't really changed.
Yeah. Well, it's been great meeting you and talking to you. There's a lot certainly going on. Hopefully we can have you back in down the road at some point.
Thank you for having me, and happy birthday, Title IX. It's the 50th anniversary, and we have a lot more work to do, but I am thrilled and committed to our students.
Lori Hendricks, our guest. My thanks to her. Thanks for watching. That's going to do it for this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.